Natasha Hall is a senior advocate for Middle East refugees, Middle East Out Refugees International, and she joins us from Washington, D.C. If we're listening to the Americans, peace is almost certainly about to break out, but there is still problems, huge problems of getting aid into Gaza. Are you disappointed that more aid isn't getting in?
I certainly am. Thank you for having me on, and I think everyone should be. Again, we're in the early days of this ceasefire, but almost immediately we saw some of the promises broken in terms of 600 trucks going through and crossings like Rafah opening again, and additional restrictions coming from Israel for international NGOs, well-renowned international NGOs that are facing new registration restrictions suddenly. And so we're seeing millions, tens of millions of dollars in aid really caught on the border and in warehouses and unable to reach people in desperate need.
One of the problems is not just opening the crossings. The crossings that are open are choked because it's taking so long for Israel to actually clear the trucks to go across the border. The security checks there are incredibly stringent. Now, Israel says that's for security, but it is slowing things down incredibly, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is. I've seen, at least in the first 4 days of the ceasefire, at least 70 denials of aid delivery from INGOs and UN agencies. So there's the choke point there. There's also the issue that's been ongoing, not just throughout the past 2 years of this war, but for many years prior to that, which is Israel's sort of regulations regarding so-called dual-use supplies. And this list has been very opaque. It has changed over a period of weeks and months. It's quite confusing for NGOs to navigate. And this has also been a choke point for many NGOs and UN agencies trying to deliver aid into the Strip.
Now, what the Americans are doing by holding a press conference at the military humanitarian coordination center that they've set up in southern Israel is to show that there is cooperation between the international community and Israel as well, and that's designed to make things smooth. Are you confident that that is actually going to happen from that center?
Well, it's hard to have confidence in these early days. I think there's a lot of improv happening right now. But what we've seen is there's about 200 troops in southern Israel through the Civilian Military Cooperation Center, which I think is supposed to essentially be the middleman between the Israelis and Israeli obstructionism and the aid agencies and, of course, the Palestinian people on the ground. And the hope is that with this sort of middleman operator coordinating between these various cells, that one can improve upon the restrictions of aid and personnel getting into the Strip as long as Israel maintains trust with its American allies. But I think it remains to be seen whether or not this will significantly change things. But I think we can be optimistic that at least the Trump administration understands that it's not signing the deal and then moving on. It's not simply monitoring ceasefire violations in terms of airstrikes and bombardment, but it also necessitates understanding how much aid is really flooding into the Gaza Strip, which is so very needed given the declarations of famine just last month.
Natasha, I want to talk to you about institutional knowledge. There is an institution that for decades was able to get not just aid into Gaza, but trade as well, get those trucks into Gaza. That was the United Nations. The United Nations is, very clearly missing from not just the coordination centre, but from this whole conversation. Is that a problem?
It's a huge problem. This effort does need to be UN-led, and I would get even more specific and talk about UNRWA, which is essentially the UN agency that has helped Palestinian refugees in Gaza and the West Bank and many of the surrounding countries for decades. And it's essentially been almost a governing structure in many cases, serving schools, and many other bits of government administration in Gaza. But they've essentially been outlawed from delivering aid by the Israelis. But this is really the organization that forms the backbone of the information needed from other aid agencies. They have the lists of beneficiaries. and really what's needed on the ground. And the fact that they haven't been involved in conversations thus far is really problematic. But we are seeing that turn around. We are seeing some UN agencies actually being involved in the conversation with this new cooperation center. So we'll see how that transpires in the days and weeks ahead.
I just want to refocus slightly now back to where you are, which is Washington, D.C. The conversations you're having with people that are influencers, people that are lawmakers, people that can actually get aid into the Gaza Strip. Are those giving you any kind of confidence that there is a serious push here?
Well, as many in your audience probably know, DC is, and many DC lawmakers are staunchly pro-Israel. And so it's been very difficult to apply the pressure needed on Israel to really scale up this humanitarian response in any substantial way, let alone many of the other stipulations of Trump's 20-point plan, including Palestinian sovereignty. But that said, there are lawmakers that are really trying to build on the momentum that we've seen from the ceasefire and really focus on the obstructionism in terms of humanitarian aid. So I think we will see more coming forward in the next few days with regards to monitoring this ceasefire and especially the delivery of humanitarian aid. Now, whether or not that gets the majority of Congress on board, that is another thing, but there are certainly lawmakers that are changing their tune, especially when it comes to humanitarian assistance.
Natasha Hall, it's been brilliant to get your insight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.